Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Beau. Hope you guys are good today. I'm in early today again. And it's 1 hour earlier, so it's 8 o'clock right now, our time. And wherever you're at, hope you guys are doing good. I was wondering if anybody's golfing out there. I saw a post this morning from my friend Ryan, who's golfing in the morning, and I was thinking, God, is he golfing like out here? Like in our state? Because our state right now is, man, it's so hot. It's one of those months where it's just, we're at the end of July and it is full force heat. You got to have an AC unit that's kicking it out. If not, it's it's really tough to be in the environment. I could see why my old man, when he came out to Tucson for the first time, he was like, there's no way I'm coming out here. No way I'm living out here. Because we ended up moving out here during March, and you would think it'd be okay, but it just happened to be in the hundreds that year. And so, man, he was just crushed by it. And we were too. It was hot. I mean, I was ready to get back to the ocean in the Pacific and feel that. Anyway, this is going to be our last devotion for July, and it'll be our last devotion for the week. We're going to finish it with Exodus 24, which is a really cool chapter. And I love to just read through the Bible. These devotions and these programs, if you will, are not some video where we got this great check this out and it's blah 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 and hey, I want to get you to click and blah, and all this I don't know what it is, man. It's like I look at the YouTube videos today, like the thing that's on your sides, all this stuff, and it's all just blah 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 blah. God, I wouldn't want to click any of it. It just it all seems, is the Bible true? Is this real? Check out this. What about this answer? Here's a question. And, and it all seems very, I don't know what the word is, over the top, but yeah, I don't know. It backfires with me, man. Maybe it's my progressive background, but I look at it and I just go, forget it. This is just a through the Bible. I just want to actually read through the Bible because it's good to know the source, man. If you're going to talk about it, you should read it. And so hopefully this helps you kind of roll through it, and you can get through it with me, man. And it'll be fun. So Exodus 24, it says, Then the Lord instructed Moses, Come up to me and bring along Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of Israel's elders. So what was once just a opportunity for Moses to go up on the mountain, here you see a crew, representative of the nation of Israel, being able to go up to the mountain. Now, again, these narratives speak of separation, that there's something amiss amongst the deity and human beings. Not everybody could go. There's a barrier at the bottom of the mountain, and this is something that we see that's a part of the fall. There is this, there's this distance now between us. Something's wrong, and this is kind of screaming in the biblical narrative. Something is wrong in your world. When you wake up and you see what goes on in the world, you turn on your 24-hour news network or whatever it is, every day, problems, issues, every day, right? It screams something. We're a mess. It screams that we all need psychologists, that we all got problems, that we're all, everything, the way we live, what we do, clothes, every single thing about it is off. We can't seem to just live. We can't seem to just love. We can't seem to function compassionately. We do so kind of in our environments, but our environments themselves are not good. And the way we structure societies, the way we live, everything is destructive, and it can be exploited, and it is exploited. Businesses, companies, blah blah blah. It just goes on and on. Yeah, there's something wrong, and this is what it keeps screaming. So if you keep seeing this theme in the Bible, it's because it really is bringing it home that there's a problem. Hey, Craig, man, I hope that I know it says I'd love to come play. I would love to come play with my friend Ryan some golf too, but it's got to be in a cooler place than this. That's for sure. I'm not going to go out and play golf when it's 110, at 10 o'clock a.m. So it says, all of you must worship from a distance. There you go. And it says, only Moses is allowed to come near to the Lord. Okay, so the rest of the crew can come, kind of partially up, but not all the way. The others must not come near, and none of the other people are allowed to climb up the mountain with him. Then Moses went down to the people and repeated all the instruction and regulation the Lord had given him. All the people answered with one voice, "We will do everything that the Lord has commanded." So the covenant that God establishes with the nation, the descendants of Jacob, right? Remember all the kids that Jacob had? Now they're a nation. They were in Egypt. Why did God have them go to Egypt? To survive and to thrive. To survive and to thrive. And they grew. And then upon their growing, they had become an issue to the Egyptians. And they were enslaved, treated bad for hundreds of years. And then God showed that, hey, God is a God who delivers. He redeems. And he does it through sacrifice, through the firstborn, through the Passover. And we're getting it. We're getting it. And then this nation is approached by the deity, not as one particular person like in Abraham's day or Jacob wrestling with God on the planet. God obviously has a body on the planet wrestling with God. Not that, because there's all these appearances of God in a body already in the Bible, quite a bit, right? But now you have this nation of people, a lot of people. And when God establishes the covenant, it is on a mountain where everybody can see. And boy, are they getting it, that we are not messing around with just one, particular person. It's one thing if you have one person out of a million. And, it doesn't seem too intimidating, right? Because you can't see them. If it's a million people, you see them on TV maybe. You're like, wow, okay, But in that day, no TV, it's like one person. That ain't going to really be that intimidating. But coming and appearing as God did on a mountain, that is seen by all. And it is kind of like the TV of that day, right? Now everybody can see. And everybody says, hey, we're going to do what is written in the covenant. And when I think of that, I think, is my yes, yes, is my no, no? Am I really is my words really matter like that? Like, I'm going to do it. I find there's some things in my life, and I don't know if you do too, but you find there's some things in your life that you really are good with your yes being yes and your no being no. And then there's other things in your life you might find that you're not so, solid on your yes being yes and your no being no. You find yourself a little shifty. You find yourself a little scattered. Not really so firm, in it. I'm always a little sketched out when someone says, oh yeah, I always hold to my da-da-da-da-da. I hold to my integrity, all the time. Like every time. Like, wow, you sound like, perfect, we'd like to, and I hope that we establish a track record in our lives of, when we say yes to something, we're going to do it. And we want to get better at those things. And We could even pray today in our devotion, to God, is help us to get better at that. To let our yes truly be yes, that when we enter into a covenant, an agreement, we hold to it. We're not so shifty. It means something. And God's giving us another amazing instruction on how relationships should be on our planet. Where do we get ideas of relationships? It's so beautiful that we have a record like this of what God thinks is important when it comes to close relationships. When they enter into a covenant and they have vows, right? This is what I'm going to do, right? Here it is. It's going to be written down. Just as in a wedding, people write out their vows, right? And they say it to one another and they go, I do. Well, this is what we got going on right here. We got the wedding ceremony, if you will, of God and the people of Israel, right? We will do everything the Lord has commanded. We're going to do it. I do. The I do of the Old Testament. And it says, then Moses carefully wrote down all the Lord's instructions. Early the next morning, Moses got up and built an altar at the foot of the mountain. He also set up 12 pillars, one of each of the 12 tribes of Israel. So we see we're dealing collectively with the entire group of Israel, of those descended from Jacob. Then he sent some of the young Israelite men to present burnt offerings, burnt offerings are like devotion offerings, kind of giving everything over to the Lord. And it says, and to sacrifice bulls as peace offerings. Hey, now we have peace. I'm offering up. I'm saying yes to the covenant. I'm into it all the way. I'm giving everything over to it. That's the idea of burnt offering. Everything is given over to this covenant. I totally agree with it. I said I do at the altar. I've made my vows. I understand my responsibility. I say I do, this kind of thing. And now we have peace. We have a peace offering unto the Lord. Moses drained half the blood from these animals into basins. The other half he splattered against the altar. Moses, quite a bloody man, right? Splattering on the altar. Then he remember those altars weren't to be all decorative either. Man, he said, when you make those altars, you make sure they're just natural. I don't want you guys to look at those altars and go, oh boy, man, we're so good. Look at this sanctuary. Wow, we are amazing. We built a great sanctuary. Whoa. God says, yo, check your heart when you come to worship me. Let it be something where you're not enamored by you, by your own idolatry. Isn't that amazing how many of us go to a church where we're just filled with idolatry, even in the room of worship? Have you ever thought of that? You're worshiping God supposedly, but you're enamored by all the surroundings. Oh, man, maybe we too perhaps are doing it wrong. Maybe we've messed up a little bit. Maybe we've messed up a lot. But we have to think about it. When I come to worship, is it really about God? Or do I want to go to a building that I find really cool? That boy, they really painted it great. Boy, they got great TVs. Man, those displays are gigantic. Oh man, the lights are amazing. Is that what it is? Then you're already on the wrong track. You could sing the song. We could sing the right song and it still be wrong. Yeah. Matt Redman wrote a song called Heart of Worship. I'm coming back to a heart of worship, and it's all about you, because it becomes all about the building, all about the stage, all about the band, all about the whatever it is, instead of really about the Lord. Yeah, so we see that they go up, they worship, and then he takes the book of the covenant, and this I find fascinating as well. The book of the covenant, and read it aloud to the people. Again, they all responded, "We will do everything the Lord commanded. We will obey." So they reiterate the "I will." I'm going to do it. But notice there's a book of the covenant. And I just got to thank God today that there's a book of the covenant. I one time met with this gentleman who really couldn't get it into his head why God would have a book. He thought it was lame. He thought it was stupid. That why would the God, the deity, of all things have a book? What is the point? He couldn't understand. But just think if he didn't have a record of his ancestry. Just think if you didn't have a record. If none of us had any records at all. Meaning, what if nothing was written down? There's no contract that's written down. There's no marriage license. There's no title to your house. Nothing's written down. There is no record. Someone walk in your house and say, "Hey, this is my house." And you say, "No, it's not. I got records." Someone call you and say, "Hey, by the way, you owe us $500. And you say, "No, I don't." And they say, "Yeah, you do." And you say, "Show me the records." He just couldn't seem to get it, that the way God displays his evidence for his being is through records. There is a track record of God's work in human history. God does it so that when we die, or one of the reasons anyway, is that when we die and we go before the Lord, there is going to be records. Yeah, records. Records, and records. Not as in, not that kind of record, even though I like those records, but it's going to be written down, meaning no excuse. You've had records. It's all been in the file cabinet. Do you want to know them? Do you want to open up the file cabinet and take a peek and look at what the records are? That's what the biblical books are. They are God's record keeping, and it is going to be a evidence that's on display when you're judged. You can say, "Oh no, I didn't know about you, God." Oh yeah? Did you look at the records? Were you interested in the records? That kind of thing. I get that from the book of Isaiah, by the way. That's not something I've made up. That's something I find throughout the entire book of Isaiah. God says, "Hey, come let us reason, man. We're going to go into the court and we're going to argue this out. And you bring your records and I'm going to bring mine. And I'm going to show you from the past all the ways that I've been working on the planet, in your world." It is something for you to know so you can know the true and living God. Man, through the historical record, through predictive prophecy that's been written down. Unbelievable stuff. And so I find it cool. A book of the covenant. There's language, there's writing, there's reading, there's records. Very cool. So we need records today. We love records, and God has a record too. And says Moses took the blood from the basins and splattered it all over the people. And he says, "Look, this blood confirms the covenant the Lord has made with you in giving you these instructions." Then Moses, Aaron, Adab, and Abihu, and the 70 elders of Israel climbed up the mountain. There they saw the God of Israel. Under his feet there seemed to be a surface of brilliant blue lapis lazuli. That's cool. As clear as the sky itself. And though these nobles of Israel gazed upon God, he did not destroy them. In fact, they ate a covenant meal, eating and drinking in his presence. Man, this is so Abrahamed out and like Jesus out, right? eating a covenant meal? Jesus ate a covenant meal with his crew. They go, they pray, they go to a room, they have the covenant meal. This is the covenant, new covenant in my blood. This is the body that's broken. Abraham eats a meal with God when he shows up on the scene with two messengers. They have a meal. Remember, go prepare the meal, Sarah. Go, here we go. You see a lot of this. This is really cool. There's an interesting passage in the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, that says, "Hey, behold, I stand on the door and knock. And anyone who hears, I will open that door and dine with them." Isn't that cool? He's going to come in and eat. Is that who you understand God to be? A God who wants to come in and hang out and have some barbecue with you. Those times where you have a barbecue and you're enjoying, some good food with your friends. And, is that how I think of God today? That God is not only the God of Mount Sinai, man, not to trifle with, but also the God who loves, and his intimacy is, second to none, right? It's the best. He's the best friend ever. He will, so here you see there's a reverence, and you see also safety. Is it scary to approach the true and living God? Absolutely. Will you be filleted open and all your faults exposed? Absolutely. But it's the safest place to be, because he has everlasting mercy too. See, if he has everlasting mercy, then he can have everlasting mercy on you. And when you cry out for that everlasting mercy, God, give me everlasting mercy. May your mercy be exalted in my life. May you have mercy, just as King David does all the time in the Psalms. God, please be merciful. Exalt your mercy. Be glorified in your mercy. God loves that. Yeah, I'll be merciful to you. And it's an everlasting mercy. So it's safe. Isn't that great? That wonderful balance that we see that is necessary for the human condition. The human condition of being fallen from the deity is such that without our reverence to God, we become pompous, prideful, arrogant. Without the mercy of God, we become absolutely filled with despair and depression. We need a message from God that is both humbling to the proud and also gracious to the downtrodden. This is the message of the Bible, from beginning to end, is just that. It's remarkable. It is there to regulate the human heart. God's revelation is perfect. It regulates us perfectly. It destroys our pride and what we think we've accomplished. We're so amazing. It takes us down a notch, or 2, or 3, or 4, and it also exalts us to the place of having fellowship with God, because he has mercy on us. Man, that is unbelievable. If you find yourself super depressed, you need to focus on God's grace and God's mercy. If you find yourself full of yourself and full of pride, then you need to look to God's judgment and look to God's perfection and look to God's requirements. And man, you'll be humbled quite a bit. So you can see how it works. Okay, so it says they were eating a meal, drinking in his presence. Man, that is so amazing. Eating and drinking and having a blast. Boy, I just find that so cool. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Come up to me on the mountain and stay there, and I will give you the tablets of stone, which I have inscribed the instructions and commands, and you can teach the people." So Moses and his assistant Joshua set out, and Moses climbed up the mountain of God. So Joshua, Moses, And it says, Moses told the elders, stay here and wait for us until we come back. And Aaron and Hur are here with you. If anyone has a dispute while I'm gone, consult with them. Hey, if there's any issues with people, hey, Aaron and Hur are there. They're going to be able to help out. They are the, associate pastors, if you will, And then you have the assistant pastor, right? Joshua hanging out with Moses. So then Moses climbs the mountain, and the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord settled down on Mount Sinai. So it's interesting, even though there's Mount Sinai, and there's this cloud, there's also a person who's eating with Moses and the crew. I mean, isn't that interesting? Again, you have a God who is very unique in the Bible. So, debating Jesus being God and can God really have a body, what are you talking about? Pick up the Bible. Start in book of Genesis. Start reading. Yeah, all the time. Yeah, it's so funny that people debate the deity of Jesus in the Gospels. It's like, you guys are missing it. You're missing the whole thing. No, you got to go back. You got to go back to the beginning of the book, because the beginning of the book establishes God. That's what it's doing. It's establishing the deity. In the beginning, God. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes our apologetics is a little weird, meaning our defending of the faith. Yeah, and when someone wants to debate Jesus if he's really God, just go back to Genesis and just say, can God have a body? And start reading. Who eats? Can you eat without a body? Can you hang out with people without a body? Can you wrestle without a body? Can you walk in the garden in the cool of the day without a body? Yeah. And see, it's very clear. And then when you go back and you do that, then it becomes obviously, yeah, God can have a body. So the debate about Jesus, the Messiah having a God in human flesh, yeah, of course, God in human flesh. Yeah. So you can see how we're a little muddled. I think we're like our professor, what my professor said in college. I think you guys talk because you like to hear yourself talk. Or we like to just quarrel instead of just read what it says. Then Moses climbed up the mountain, and the cloud covered it, and the glory of the Lord settled down, right? And it says, on the seventh day, the Lord called to Moses from inside the cloud. To the Israelites at the foot of the mountain, the glory of the Lord appeared at the summit like a consuming fire. Then Moses disappeared in a cloud as he climbed higher up on the mountain, and he remained on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights. So you can see what's going on. When there's an address to the people of Israel, millions of people, there is the cloud, there is the fire, there is the thunder, there is the display, right? So everybody sees, right? If it's one person, right, on the mountain, hey, hello, it ain't gonna work. Hello, it ain't gonna happen, But then when there's this smaller group of people, God's in a body hanging out. It's so fascinating. And I'm sure it's at the same time. There's the cloud and there's a person. I mean, it's just absolutely cool that our God is unique and special. And boy, I love that God makes sense. That makes sense, that God would be complex. He would be different. He would be able to be there and there and there and there and here and have true intimate experience with me personally, and have experience with other people personally as well. It's not just me. He's not just focused on Beau and Beau alone, but he can focus on everybody individually and collectively, all at the same time. He judges Moses as an individual. He judges Israel collectively. And we see this throughout the Bible. He will judge us individually and collectively. Wow. But just to know that God is safe, where I can go to God, is an amazing idea. To know that God has established his truth in such a way that it regulates in my heart, that when I really am thinking of God correctly, it's a regulator to the human condition, to us. And I thank God for his revelation, because it's the thing, these commandments and these rules, man, shattered my world. When I read them at 17 years of age, I knew at that point that if this God is the real God, that I am undone, that I have not kept the commandments. And if there's any vows to be made, I have broken them. And I am deserving of judgment of this God. There's no way I could dwell in the presence of this deity. And it was at that point I knew I needed what we call saving. Saving from his judgment on me. So these were powerful, powerful words. Exodus, 20 through 24 in my own personal life. And that was at 17. How did I get there? Just by reading the Bible, picking it up, starting in Genesis chapter 1 and moving on. Man. Anyway, what a great chapter. Love that chapter. Makes me just want to thank God for his word, for his revelation, for his history, the record that he lays down, that he's made it really clear who he is to anyone who is a inquirer, a real wanting to know. He has hidden himself from the proud, but he reveals himself to those who seek him with all of their heart. Both things are happening at the same time. A concealing of God, Mount Sinai, the concealing, the cloud, right? What does God look like? Cloud, fire. There's a concealing, and then there's a revealing. Very cool. Okay, we will talk to you guys later. And man, there's so many cool things to think about. You guys have a great weekend, okay? Bye-bye.